What's up, superheroes? Miles here. Today I'm going to just share, I guess, a collection of thoughts I had this morning. Um, I've been working on a podcast episode and a superhero toolkit series episode on my YouTube channel. I've been working on a couple episodes, but there's a little bit of pre-production involved, and I've had a lot of stuff going on. So we'll get to those at another point. The next episode I wanted to do on the Miles and the Supermen podcast was this episode called Gardener Mentality, which is sort of how I move about my day as a man, as a dad, as a partner, and all that. So that's going to be a lot of fun, but I've been sort of sitting looking at the world and be like, okay, well, I probably need to address sort of just something about the crazy state of things here in the United States and around the world. So, I just had a few thoughts this morning, and maybe you feel the same way. So, I just figured I'd share them with you, and if you resonate or whatever, let me know. Or if you got other thoughts and feelings, but, I don't know, let me know. So, I was thinking about safety. We hear so much about safety, right? Safety. It's for your own safety. Safety. So you got to keep everything safe. Safe. Right? And first of all, we got to think about what safety means and what it entails. But all that aside, I think broadly speaking, I think we can generally sort of have an idea of what safe feels like to us, right? And I was thinking, I want to live in a community where people feel safe. Which people? All people. I don't feel like my community is safe if people can't be and feel safe there. But what do I mean by safety? Well, the freedom to be themselves in whatever weird way that might be, as long as it's not bringing harm directly to another person. Now, this seems kind of simple, right? But a lot of people be like, well, I see a thing, and there's a lot of people, you know who they are. I see a thing, and I don't like it because I was told on TV or at my local church that this is a bad thing. And so I see this thing happening. Nothing's actually happening to me. It doesn't even involve me at all. But I feel like it impacts me because I've been taught to make that connection in my brain. And so when we say something is not happening, so when I say if it's not bringing harm to another person, I'm not saying it may not offend your sensibilities. I'm saying real harm. We know what real harm looks like. One of these things is I don't like that thing. And the other one is, oh my God, there's violence happening here, right? It's not, you can feel the difference. So, it's okay for things to be a little annoying or a little whatever. But there's a moment you can feel it when it turns, when it's like, oh, this isn't safe anymore. So, the safety is important. Being a safe person and wanting safety go hand in hand. If you're safe to be around and you don't endanger other people because of the way you're feeling about something, then people can generally just be themselves. And sometimes people are a little weird, and sometimes things are a little noisy, a little imposition, whatever. That's part of being human. But generally, weirdness, or something different than what you're familiar with, is not threatening to you. If anything, it usually has a lot to offer once you dig down deep, and we'll get to maybe that a little bit later. But that's the point. Freedom to be themselves in whatever weird way that might be, so long as it's not bringing harm directly to another person. Safety means having a community around you with resources that are available upon your request, but which are not forced upon you in any way. Right? A safe community is one that deals with challenges and problems constructively and compassionately. So, if you have a bad day, it probably doesn't help to make you unsafe on top of it, right? That's how we deal with a lot of problems right now. If somebody has a mental sort of episode or whatever, what do we call the cops, and sometimes if they're not white kids, they get gunned down. or something crazy happens. It's insane. Like, what is happening here? So, like, this doesn't help anybody. This doesn't make anybody safer. This doesn't make me feel safer. It makes me feel like we've got a real problem here that is underneath the surface, and I think we'll get to that in a minute. So, I don't want to live in a community where officers, to that end, I don't want to live in a community where officers of any kind, uniformed or otherwise, can just kidnap a person off the streets and toss them into a torture box. Oh, and then on top of it, the taxpayers have to pay for that too. So, like, I don't want to live in a community where poverty exists. I don't, as a civilization, we quite certainly know how to provide a high standard of living for every human being in our communities. So for any of this stuff to be happening is absurd. What an embarrassment. We should be embarrassed that any of this is happening. One incident, it's the same thing with the gun violence, with the, in the schools. Like, one incident is too many. And if it gets there, then we've already screwed up somewhere way back and we got to go fix whatever it was. Like, that's what real men do. That's what taking responsibility means. It's saying, oh, this is a problem. This shouldn't happen once, let alone hundreds and hundreds of times a year. It shouldn't happen even once. So we're already lost. We already failed. Now it's about taking responsibility and cleaning up the mess properly so that it does not happen anymore. Right? So, like I said, we know how to create a high standard of living so that people can thrive in our communities. And I know this. It's like, oh, well, what about, it's too expensive. We don't have the money. I'm like, okay, well, we got money for tanks and prisons and bombs. So I know we have money for schools, hospitals, and to take proper care of people. You got money for one, you got money for the other, right? If you're talking to somebody who's, living in poverty and you say, oh, you got your beater car, you should be saving your money, but you put fancy rims on it, or you put a big sound system in your car. It's like, okay, well, you could be feeding your people and educating your people and providing real, genuine safety and security to your community, but you're busy playing with your big guns and your toys. Big, strong men playing with our toys, letting the world go to shit on our watch. Yeah. I don't want to live in a world where we have to call our representatives every other week to try to convince them to stop selling out our rights and our planet. I want my government to be boring. I want the arts to be exciting. I want travel to be exciting. I want life to be exciting. I want my public services to be boring, accessible, and reliable. Is that so hard? I know it's not so hard because I know there are other places in the world that are already doing it just fine. Even if they don't have it perfect, we don't have to do perfect. We just got to do better than whatever this shit show is. All right. And, why this? Because why am I talking about this? Because I'm tired of the fight. I'm tired of the struggle. I want to live in a world where my community is not under threat from this clearly age-old class war that's been raging on since long before any of us were even born. I'm tired of it. I'm exhausted. This is exhausting. Everyone's tired of it. Everyone's tired. This is exhausting and a stupid, stupid way to exist. And we know that it can be better. We know it because it's proof. It's proof. We can prove it. There's people living it right now. There are things that I've been told by certain communities, they're impossible, that I live in my home every day just fine. And I'm like, oh, okay. So what you think is possible is like this big. What I live is a possibility that's so much bigger, it doesn't even fit on the phone screen. So, fascinating. People so confidently tell you, oh, this is the best we can do. Oh, really? Really? Well, the proof is in the pudding, and the proof is not on your side of the argument. We know how to heal the world. We know how to thrive as a civilization. It's not rocket science. People have figured out how to thrive peacefully at various places and times throughout the world over and over and over again. We know how to do this. You know how I know that we know how to do this, other than having seen it firsthand myself? Look at the simplest wisdom that we tend to dole out. What is the golden rule? You can say it with me now. Treat others as you wish to be treated yourself. Or some version of that, right? Why? Why this? Why treat others as you would have them treat you? Why that? Well, religious people will tell you usually that it involves, or at least Christians maybe would tell you that it involves this idea that God is in all of us, and the way we treat one another is a reflection of the way we are treating our God. So whether you believe in the religious interpretation or not, this is also exemplified in the idea that each of us has a tangible, real human experience. I don't want to be locked in a cage or treated with violence or have my voice and my autonomy stifled, and neither do you. And if we are unwilling to solve large-scale problems in this way, we protect everyone from having to have that experience. That's the world I want to live in. And you might notice I specified large-scale. This has to do with the fact that systems and organizations are more massive and more powerful than individual human beings by orders of magnitude plural. Plus on a smaller scale, there are sometimes more complicated situations that occur. But the big difference between violence of systems and the violence between individual human beings is that one of these things happens on, it's like fighting a mountain, right? Like a system or an organization is like a mountain. It's got that much weight behind it, and if you just roll over people with that, then it defeats the whole purpose and what having systems is for in the first place, right? Little side tangent. So all this business of conquering other territory, I'm going to go take your thing and blah, blah, blah. So the reality is that if you're so incompetent that you can't either cultivate resources in your own, and I'm talking about for the countries that got the U.S. We got bombs galore. We can bomb anybody. Bomb, 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 bomb. So we got all this money, all these resources, like the most decadent riches you could ever have. And the truth is that a real competent leadership would not need to invade other places. You don't, like, if you're, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're a big power, if you're like Russia or China or the United States, if you got all that space and all those people and all those resources, and you can't either cultivate what you need within your own country, or you're so bad at diplomacy that you can't cultivate meaningful reciprocal deals with other countries to get the stuff you need, then what are you even doing? How pathetic. That's not leadership. That's not strong. Oh, the only way I know how to I gotta invade somewhere and steal their shit because I'm too incompetent to use the resources I have. I'm too emotionally stunted to be able to have constructive relationships with other countries. So the only thing I could think to do is shoot. Oh God, so fucking stupid, so dumb, pathetic. Good God, man. How embarrassing. It's like shitting the bed in front of the world. Phenomenal cosmic power. Itty bitty consciousness. And you see the stupidity that comes from it. It's embarrassing. It's like, these aren't strong men. They're stupid people. Just stupid. And, just see it for what it is. Real men know how to build real constructive relationships and use what they have. Whatever the rest of this business is not real men. Real bullshit is what it is. Okay. So, this golden rule, this super important rule, right? I don't want you to violate me, and you don't want me to violate you. Cool. So if we're going to honor this golden rule, we have to acknowledge that not everybody has the same amount of say in every given situation. So we can't just hold people equally accountable. Like I said, with the organization or a system, this huge, massive, powerful entity that's powered by hundreds or thousands or millions of people. And if there's a conflict between them and just one individual or a small community, I mean, like, who's responsible for what happens next there? Really, who's responsible? Right? It's whoever's got the more power. So they're the ones. So if something bad happens after that, it's their fault. We hold them responsible. We'll get there in a minute, right? But yeah. So if we're going to honor the golden rule, we have to acknowledge that not everybody has the same amount of say in any given situation. We have social structures where, you know, a man or a white man or whatever, or may have rights in a situation, or privileges, the ability to do something that violates somebody else and get away with it, that maybe somebody else, like a you know, Hispanic woman or like a black man or somebody, might not have in that same, almost certainly would not have, given the culture that we live in. So even in a conflict, on a one-on-one sort of conflict that could arise in that situation, even if everyone's got good intentions, there's still those dynamics at play. There's still a power dynamic at play there underneath everything else. There's rules that one group is having to play by and rules that the other group doesn't have to play by. And inherently, there is a power dynamic there. So who's really responsible for what happens? Well, I do the math. Just subtract the power from the power. Whoever has the positive power at the end of the equation, that's the person who's responsible. So, you know, you got certain person's got this much social capital and someone's got this much social capital, and you subtract them. Oh, there's a difference of about this much social capital. That's how much power this person has over this person. Real easy. So who's responsible? This person, by about that much. That's how much more responsible they are for what happens. And if it's double or triple or orders of magnitude, now we're talking, okay, so then the other person is almost not at all responsible for what happens because they don't have enough control to control the outcome of the situation. So there it is. But yeah, so, and to illustrate the point, we'll forego religious mythology and instead refer to comic book mythology. With great power, there must also come great responsibility. Given that power is just a fancy word for ability, yes, we are all responsible for the impact that our actions have on the world and others around us. It doesn't matter what our intentions are. The impact is what matters most and what matters last. So, the bigger the organization or the system, the more responsible the system is for what it does to or for human beings. This is why we're tough on systems, but gentle on people. An organization or a system cannot feel pain. It can't experience the fear, things like fear or the passage of time. An organization or a system, like a country or a company or an economic system, are simply human algorithms. They're a dance, a sequence of prescribed actions, or a song that you play through. It's a mode of behavior that has been written down in a book, no different than the notes that tell you how to play a song. So a company cannot feel terror. It cannot feel sadness. We personify these things to our own detriment and to our delusion, and ultimately to our destruction. But they're not real. We are. They are imaginary, just like a song that is made up. And in a similar way, if we don't play the song, then it doesn't exist in our current reality. So what does this mean? It means that the systems, it means that systems can be killed or changed or whatever, and nobody gets hurt. Especially if in doing these changes, we account for the change itself so we don't hurt people along the way with the change itself. If we prioritize the well-being of human beings per the golden rule, and then whenever human well-being comes into conflict with systemic or organizational wants, because companies and organizations, they can't have needs because it's a voluntary action. We just don't have to create that company or that, you know what I mean? It's just a thing that, like, no songs don't have needs either. You know, agendas, I guess, are technically a reflection of an organization or a person's wants, but not needs. There's nothing that an organization needs because it's not a living thing. And so because of that, we can only talk about conflicts. So like Amazon doesn't need anything. They want things. China may want, Tibet, right? Russia may want, Crimea or Ukraine, right? But they don't need these things. And that's the point, right? It's a want. I want more. More. I can't do enough with what I have, so I want your thing too. Well, by the looks of it, if you can't even handle what you got, what the fuck are you going to do with what I got? But that's beside the point. Let's see here. Oh yeah, and because of this, it's easy to sort out this moral dilemma because the human element carries more weight, always, since it is the only element in the equation that has any grounding in the real world or the real human experience. Systems and organizations are merely human inventions and thus cannot be valued more than even a single human being. But that's not really the source of the problems we're facing. Those are more of the semantics and the structures through which systemic violence happens. Violence. Now we're getting to the real problem. We have to truly understand violence in all its forms, or we're driving blind through this challenge. And we will fail each other like so many have before us. Violence, at the root of the word, simply means an instance where someone or something has been violated. I think that we're drowning in violence, and we've become so used to it so much that we're really only aware of it when we see it in the extreme. But the truth is, we've been drowned in it since before any of us was ever even born. Violence can occur in the realm of the mind, in the realm of the spirit, or in the physical realm of the body. What does mental violence look like? Withholding information to gain advantage over someone, giving someone bad information, either by accident or in the hopes that they might fail or be harmed by it. Regardless of the intention, in that case, the harm is the same. Another example is gaslighting. There's book burning, which is all sort of intended to restrict the flow of information. These are all ways of violating another person's ability to move throughout their world with informed consent. You're trying to block off their access to information so that they are not capable of making certain kinds of decisions for themselves. And that's lying. That is intellectual violence. We're trying to use the realm of thoughts, understandings, awarenesses, consciousness. This is all weaponizing these things, right? What about emotional violence, right? So we're not weaponizing here anymore. Now we're weaponizing here, right? And we're talking about energy. We're talking about attitudes. We're talking about intentions. Not how are you violating somebody, but why? What are you trying to do? What do you get out of that, right? And so I think this is the one that we really understand the least. Speaking as a heterosexual, straight American white man, the rest of the world understands it a lot better than those of us who are like me do. But the reality is that anywhere you go, emotional violence is one of the most ubiquitous forms of violence that I've seen. It's the intent to harm someone else. Emotional violence is when we violate the bonds that make us trustworthy and respectable. The emotional intent to violate someone else. Sometimes this is motivated by other emotional and intellectual processes that are sort of beneath a person's awareness, and at other times it's quite conscious. Regardless of the intention and the impact, the intent to harm others is always underneath, informed by some previous trauma of the mind, the body, or the spirit. In other words, hurt people hurt other people. So some of the most popular expressions of emotional violence that I see involve bullying. The subject of bullying is one that we like to talk about in the context of schools, and with very good reason. But frankly, the kids are getting it from somewhere, and that's the. I think that maybe that's the important part of the conversation that we've been having a hard time having. The truth is, the best I can tell, the American culture is made up almost entirely of violence. At the center of it is this beautiful pearl of potential that has been locked in stasis, buried under an entire race of Native Americans, and the bodies of countless black slaves, and the blood, sweat, and tears of impoverished immigrants, and an entire world scarred by the violence of the most overfunded military in all of human history. Ditto for the police and prison systems locally. So what is that pearl anyway? That pearl of potential that's buried underneath all this suffering and violence and lies. And what is it? Well, really what it is it's the actual American dream. It's also not a whole lot unlike the dream that was Rome, right? So let's get into what that is. And what is the pearl of potential? It is the true potential of a melting pot society, right? It's a working prototype of a world where borders and cultures exist, but people can move freely among them in circulation like the lifeblood of a thriving community. Where people from all walks of life come together in community and nourish each other with a diverse landscape of mental, spiritual, and physical riches. Which reminds me, on the subject of diversity, does anyone remember why inbreeding is bad? I know, feels like a super hard e-brake slide, non sequitur into another subject, but actually on the subject of a melting pot, the advantage is diversity. And I know there's a big scary word for some people, but here we're going to sit and unpack it a little bit. And the way we're going to unpack it is by examining an instance where we rejected diversity and we saw what happened. It's not good. So spoiler, it's not good. So on the subject of diversity, does anybody remember why inbreeding is bad? And for starters, I'm not talking about like in a weird moral judgment kind of way. You know, if it's consensual, you do you, who am I to judge? No. I'm talking about the silly European aristocrats who became obsessed with bloodlines and started inbreeding to try to keep their blood pure. What they discovered is kind of interesting. It turns out that if you don't diversify the gene pool, then over time, the limited options that the genetic pool has to pull from means that bloodline actually becomes more fragile and susceptible to birth defects, diseases, and other malformations. So pure blood actually kind of makes you weaker. But as we learned earlier, we don't experience the world in just the physical realm. So what does intellectual inbreeding look like? Well, it looks like getting all of your ideas and beliefs from one book or one text or one constitution or one whatever. If power means ability and knowledge is power, then more knowledge just means you have more ability, right? In the same way that if you only consumed one kind of food, you would become nutritionally deficient over time. And if you consume one kind of culture or ideology, then the same thing happens to your mind. You become malnourished mentally. You become unable to process certain things because you don't continue upgrading and updating, right? We upgrade and update our phones and other electronics all the time for the exact same reason. So what I'm trying to say is if you want pure blood, that doesn't benefit from the riches of diversity, it's going to turn out really gross and weird, and it won't do what you want it to do. It won't make you strong. It'll actually make you weak. And so things that are easy for everyone else will start becoming hard for you and your people. Because because that's what it does. That's you've limited yourself. So everyone else who's not limited in that way, they don't limit themselves in that way, but you do. So what do you expect? You're gonna fall behind, of course, of course. What did you think would happen? Um. Anyway, uh, so I think we're like halfway through, maybe a little bit more. So, yeah, pure blood doesn't make you strong, makes you weak. Yeah, with the same culture and ideologies, um, you make yourself weak, And I don't think you want to be missing the updates and the upgrades. I don't think you want to make yourself weak intellectually and emotionally and physically. So, if you want your ideologies to be strong, you might consider consuming many of them and only adopting the ones that beat out all the others in the real practice of the human experience. That's an interesting space for competition. Let ideas compete in our minds. That's way better than competing over resources like we're fighting for scraps or something. Again, we can't be super proud if we're also being pathetic at the same time. You gotta pick one. You gotta either be a person that you're proud of, or you gotta accept that you're pathetic and like get to work. It's okay. If you want to actually have a thing that's worth being proud of, though, either you're already doing it or you got work to do. No hard feelings. It just is what it is. That's the work of being a man. Finding out what's wrong, finding the correct problem, and you fix it. You do your job. You do the learning. You do the growing. You fix it so that it works well for everybody else. That's a real man. All right. Let's see here. Strong ideologies. Diverse diet. Yes. All right. Oh, here is an interesting one. What is emotional inbreeding? Emotional inbreeding. All right. Well, the whole purpose of breeding is to mix up the gene pool, right? It's to add new genes to provide additional resources for the emerging organism to use to optimize the way it interacts with its environment at that time, right? So in other words, it keeps us strong against invaders and malfunctions. Emotionally, this means practicing and maintaining fluency with our full range and spectrum of emotions, right? We do this by learning to acknowledge and manage them within ourselves and connect with other people while they are experiencing some version of those same emotions. In doing so, we develop a finely tuned awareness of our own emotions and what those are telling us about our surroundings and our inner life, what they say about other people, and how to use this information constructively to build more secure bonds or to repair them in times of conflict. So, basically it's about how we are able to trust and respect ourselves and each other enough to make cool things and continue keeping those cool things, well, cool. In other words, emotional diversity is part of how we're able to have nice. This is why we can have nice things. Is emotional diversity, right? And so like with any, like just like with weightlifting, or learning to play an instrument, you don't build those skills, you don't build that muscle, but just engaging in one exercise or doing it once in a while, right? Real fluency, real consistency and strength and power comes from doing reps regularly, from a diverse diet, from a diverse range of exercises, so your whole body is strong, right? You can't be skipping leg day, y'all. That's what I'm trying to say. We can't skip leg day. No, but in all seriousness, this just isn't this complicated. It doesn't have, things don't have to be this hard. Things don't have to be this crazy. I don't think most of us disagree on that. I would say that probably almost everyone I talk to, no matter what background they come from, they just kind of, they want the same thing. They want the government to stay out of their shit unless they need help. In which case, we all pay taxes. I think it should be covered by now. I think we've paid enough in. I think if there's no money left over, probably because somebody's misspending it somewhere. So let's fix that. And if we're not spending it on human well-being, then we're misspending it. So if we're doing cops or jails or soldiers or tanks or weapons or all of that, Like, what, you may as well be buying spinning rims for your shitty car. Thanks, but no thanks. I don't want that done with any. I don't want that done in my country. I don't want that done in the world. I don't want that done in my community. I don't want a community that is plagued by stupidity and fucking violence. I want a simple, cool, fun, vibrant, safe, secure, healthy, happy community that gets to enjoy life on this planet. That's what I want. And I don't know anybody who doesn't want that. So we know how to make it. And this is me just saying it so that somebody else can say, oh yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Or you could be like one of these feisty men who's very serious. I'm very mad at you about saying true shit at me. And to you, I say, okay, well, don't freak out. It's all right. Everybody's going to be all right. Don't panic and go do a violence. Kind of what I'm talking about. But if you have big feelings, that's okay. I've had big feelings too. Turns out we all have big feelings. Not just you. Big feelings about being unheard, about being scared, about being angry. Yeah, other people are angry too, even if they don't go out and shoot people about it. Who knew? Right? So, if you're feeling some kind of way, that's cool. But sit down and relax. I'm not your enemy. I'm just another person out here looking at the world just like you are. But if we want things to get better, you can't make a better world out of shit. Like you wouldn't make a sandwich and then slap some shit on there and expect it to be a good sandwich, right? So don't put any shitty violence into our world solutions and into our communities. If you got a solution, let's make sure it's constructive and compassionate, so that we actually get good results. Keeping it simple. Golden rule. Don't do anything to anyone else you wouldn't want done to you. I think it'll be all right.